to get under your desk.
When I was a kid, I lived in a fairly small town that was mostly just made up of a few grocery stores, a couple of fast food places, and a crap ton of townhomes. When my family first moved in there, it was fairly empty. Our neighborhood was pretty much the first out of a few townhomes and condo complexes to be built in that part of the vast expanse of fields. Now, this area wasn't rural by any means. There were farms and quite a bit of wildlife that ran through on occasion, but it was located next to a quickly growing city, and a highway ran right through the center, which led to the surrounding cities and freeway intersection. Anyway, due to the fairly new town's growth, an elementary school had just been built to accommodate the growing population. I was one of the first people to go there when it first opened, and even then what would become the 6th grade classrooms were still being finished when the first school year started. Because this school was so new, they had a lot of security features such as thicker glass for each window, better locks on doors, heavier doors, nice cameras at every entrance and exit, as well as automatic locks that had to be unlocked from the inside at the office or via keycard. Anyway, what I was trying to get at was this town wasn't very big, and not a lot happened here. Plus the school was pretty secure, so nobody really thought anything bad would or could happen. I remember starting from kindergarten and up, the school would have routine lockdown, fire, and earthquake drills. Before I thought it was kind of fun, not realizing the importance of them or really why we did them, and so before I didn't really take them seriously. That wasn't until one day in 3rd grade, when I'd been going here for about 4 years. I remember it was a day like any other. I went inside, went up to my classroom to put my backpack in my cubby, then went to sit at my desk until class started. At some point, just before we were to go to our class rotation, I believe today's rotation was either music or art, there was an announcement over the intercom. Now, the drills have always started with a warning about 5 minutes beforehand, letting everyone in the school know what kind of drill would be happening, then they'd start the drill. Generally, with lockdown drills, we'd hear the words "lockdown drill" over the intercom. The teacher would have us hide in the cubby closet and would cover up the windows with black pieces of cardstock after locking the door. This particular day, there was no drill mentioned in the schedule. There was no warning before the intercom came on. All we heard were the words "lockdown" before the teacher got up to lock the door and cover the windows. Nothing too intense happened. No gunshots, no screaming, no banging on doors. It was quiet for what I think might have been 10 minutes or so. That wasn't until someone came to try and open our door. We could all hear the sound of a grown man's voice outside along with the doorknob jiggling, but not opening. The thing that scared me about his voice wasn't, well, the fact we were hearing a grown man outside of the classroom though. It was the fact that he seemed to be trying to make himself sound like a child. He was trying to make his voice sound higher than it was, and it chills me to the bone even now thinking about it. He kept standing in front of the door, saying things like, "I'm scared, can you let me in?" or "I was told to go here." Eventually, after a few minutes of this and getting no response, he moved on to the next classroom and continued the same routine. I'm sure it only took another 10 minutes or so for the cop to show up, but it felt like that time couldn't have gone by fast enough after hearing that gross impression of a child. Eventually the cops did come and arrest the man, who, from what I heard later on from some kids gossiping around the school, looked like he was either homeless or had been on some kind of substance for a while, and had some kind of weapon on him. Rumors spread around the school that the guy had snuck in with a gun. Other kids claimed he had a knife and threatened the office ladies. Some of the 6th graders thought it was funny to tell us little graders that some kid got hurt but was pulled out of school because of it. Other rumors went around that it was the janitor, but considering that the guy is still working there to this day, I doubt that's the case. Either way, it was pretty scary, and I honestly really hope that now I don't ever have to deal with something like that again. This started out as a normal day as most do at school. I was halfway into my junior year of high school and sitting in my first period Spanish class. I should probably give you a layout of the school so you can imagine how it was set up. My school is set up in a big X. In the very center, it splits off into 4 main halls. If you're standing in the middle in the commons looking towards the front, that's where the main office and administrative offices are. On the other side of those is the 100 hallway to your right and the 200 to your left. If you turn around, you will see the cafeteria. On either side of the cafeteria, you see the 400 to your right and the 300 to your left. Above the 100 is the 600 hall, and on top of the 200 is the 700, and on top of the 400 is the 800. Confusing, right? Well, all the language classes were on the 700 hall. That's where we were when we heard our principal's frantic voice over the intercom say that we were going into a full lockdown and that all teachers and students remain in their classrooms behind locked doors. Everyone kind of looks at each other in confusion while my teacher gets up with a worried look on her face and speed walks to the door so she can lock it. After locking it, she looks back at all of us and exclaimed we all needed to get in the corner of the room. Everyone stood up confused still. You could blame it on only being at school for 15 minutes when this was called, so most of us were still half asleep at this time. We all got into the corner and sat down. Girls started crying, and us guys were trying to calm everyone. I remember saying something along the lines of, "It's probably just a lockdown drill that they don't warn us about so we would think it was real and actually participate correctly." I wish I never had said that, because I would come to remember me saying that every time I think about this day. After 15 minutes pass and there's no call that the lockdown is over, it's not a drill. Everyone was texting their friends asking if they were okay, and that's when we got the word that someone had committed suicide in the parking lot. The rumor spread like wildfire, and soon everyone in the school knew about it. More rumors were spread of other things that really didn't make sense. I brushed those off quickly just because of how absurd they were, but I couldn't 100% believe the suicide rumor either. People tend to say and spread false information to start a new conversation, which in turn just confuses people more. A couple hours go by and we get word of the student's name, and to make matters worse, it was a girl in my class's boyfriend. She heard people talking about it in the class. She was bawling her eyes out the rest of the day. We were in that class together. After the news spread around the area we lived in, the media showed up. Worried parents started calling their kids. Some parents even showed up at the school despite us being on full lockdown. I remember sitting in that classroom well past lunchtime, and at about 2 o'clock the lockdown was called off. I remember just wanting to go home, so I got out and drove to a Taco Bell with my friends to talk about the whole thing, because we were all in different classes. We all thought it was a tragic event that took place on campus grounds, and we truly felt for the kid. Not being able to imagine what he went through that led him up to doing what he did. About a week later, my friend tells me that the school and police department covered up most of the details to reduce panic among students. It turns out he was planning on entering the school and opening fire on whoever he could. He took his father's AR-15 and his pistol that morning and left a note for his parents to find. He then made his way to the school, parked in his parking space, and sat in his car. His bad luck started when his mother came back to the house to grab something. She left and found the note, so she called the police. A few minutes after he arrived at the school, a squad car pulled into the parking lot. Fearing the worst, he turned the gun on himself and took his own life. My friend then proceeded to tell me the cop he talked to said they found the rifle and enough ammunition to supply the whole police department in the trunk. Many people who knew him denied that he would have done such a thing, but I truly believe he was planning a malicious attack. The motive was he wanted vengeance on those who bullied him, so they could feel the wrath in which they created. Even if this wasn't true, even if he didn't have a rifle with him, it's still scary to think that things could have went south very, very quickly had his mom not found that note. That's what scares me every time I remember that day. This just happened recently. I thought it was going to be a normal day. Earlier in the day, second period, we had an intruder lockdown drill. A teacher went around trying the door handles and leaving after it wasn't unlocked. We basically stayed in the room and just joked around. Forward to lunch. We're just sitting there eating, when out of nowhere, behind this one wheel around sink thing, we hear a pop. It wasn't that loud, but was certainly loud, sort of. Everyone is joking around, and then two kids go running out of the cafeteria. A second pop occurs, and everyone just starts running. I run out and make it out the main exit/entrance. We run to the senior citizen home nearby, and then group up by a corner. I was confused because for the drill they said it wasn't going to be real or traumatic. I then knew something happened when the whole police force of our small town and neighboring towns just showed up. We stay there for a bit. My mom picks me up. While we were walking to the car, some lady wielding a pistol asks if the school is secured to a cop. The cop takes her gun, and I think she got arrested later. We later hear at home from the news and other students that one kid pulled out a gun, fired in the air once, and then shot himself in the head. Luckily, he never aimed it at anyone else. I heard the rest of the school was on lockdown. The kid's condition hasn't been released yet, but why do it in a school? You're causing trauma and panic for students and staff. You always hear things on the news and think it will never happen to you. Even though it wasn't as bad as some other places, I'm still glad I didn't see any of it. Always remember that anything can happen, no matter where you are. My condolences go out to the family and the witnesses. If the kid does survive, I hope he gets the help he needs. Stay safe out there. This is a story that happened to me in grade 5, and this was during quarantine. I live in Arizona, so at the time we weren't in full quarantine. Me and my friend were walking to gym for PE. I don't like PE, so for me and my friend, we were always a little late. And you're all probably thinking right now, why didn't you run to the nearest classroom when you heard the intercoms? Well, there was nothing said through the intercoms. Back to the story. We just made it to the gym. We pulled on the door, but it wouldn't open. So then we knocked. No one answered. So we knocked again. Nobody answered. So then I yell, "Come on, open the door." Then one of my classmates answers the door, and he says, "Oh my god, you scared us all, man. There's a lockdown, get in." So me and my friend asked if it was real, and the kid then answered saying, "I don't know." Just for a bit of context, this building is old, and the doors were always unlocked, but our PE teachers had keys, so we're good there. It was a small gym with 2 bleachers. It was connected to the high school building, doors on every side of the building, and 2 leading outside. 1 to the high school, 2 to the bathrooms with back doors. Then, I asked my friend, "Hey, do you know if this is real?" She said back, "I don't know, ask the teacher." I asked the teacher and he said yes. At that moment, my heart dropped. I'm just gonna make this story short. There was no problem. There was a high schooler that people thought they had a gun, but they didn't. So yeah, that's that. But what was really creepy was that the girl back bathroom door was open.